Okay. So let's start with again array. We discussed few of the things, but let's start it again from here. So what is in general array in any of the programming languages? So an array is used to be a special type of variable which store a more than one values. So whenever we have to store more than one value inside any variable, we basically use an array. And how do we and the value can be of same type or different type. So in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript, an array can store a multiple array can be like can store a same data type values or multiple data type values as well. Example, the similar thing that we have seen over here, which is whenever we provide the data type as any, it will accept all the different data type that we can provide, or we can also declare a specific type or specific data type of values inside an array. Example, if you see over here, which is const array 4 equals to whatever the number that you provide over here, let's say 40, 50, and so on. So this will become a specific type of data that we are trying to store it over here, which is number. Okay. So here, what did we do is we have basically created an array, uh, a variable which is known as array 4 or array 5, and then from that, we are trying to. What did we do is like we have made it as made it at a specific type, which is the data type of number, and whenever we provide the number over here, we'll only be able to store numerical value inside the array. So if you try to store change it to array variable. Okay. So now if you see over here, it is throwing us an error saying that string and or number is not assignable to type number. That means we have declared a variable type. We have declared a variable which is type of number, but it cannot accept uh, in general string value that we are trying to insert it inside a numeric array. Okay. So whenever we make it as a specific type of data type that we have to store inside an array, we can do this in this way by just providing a data type and then the square bracket symbol so that it will be considered as an array. To declare an array in either of the TypeScript or JavaScript, we basically use a square bracket. So whenever we have to store an array, we can directly use a square bracket, and inside that we can provide n number of data, whatever the data that we generally have to insert inside our array. Okay. So this is where we can make our array more in something like more specific to a data type that we want to store, or we can also make it as any, so that any type of data type that will be able to store inside the array. Okay. And then we have also seen like there are different ways in which we can declare an array. First and basic way, like a very basic way, is to generate an array in an array literal way. So what is literal? Whenever we assign the value directly by using equal to and like whatever the value that we want to assign, we can assign it inside a square bracket. That is in a more literal way, where we have directly assigned the value to an array. One is array literal way. Second, we had seen as a generic way, where we can take the help of array interface that we have seen earlier, and inside that we can provide the again here also either we can provide a specific, either we can store a specific data type, or we can also store any number of data type, any type of data type that we can store inside an array, right? So in general, we'll be using like two types of array itself. One is like two types of declaration of array. One is like array literal, where we define the variable and inside that we can directly store the value inside the square bracket. And second is a generic way, which is also exactly similar, but the only difference that we have is instead of in generic way we have written a data type, which is number and then square bracket. Whereas in terms of generic way, we'll use an array keyword starting with A capital, array keyword, and then inside that, inside the diamond bracket, which is less than and greater than symbol, inside that we'll be using what kind of data type that we are trying to store, whether that is number, string, boolean, or a combination of number, string, boolean, or any other data type. Or we can also use any, so that it will accept all the type of data type that we are trying to store inside an array. Okay. So these are the two way in which mostly we use in terms of whenever we have to use uh, for TypeScript, and then also for the test automation. Um, there are third way as well, which say it as a third way, but we have already seen that. That let's say I'll just so okay, let me write it over here. So third way that we declare is using type inference, right? So using type inference means we know that what will happen in terms of type inference. So whenever we do not provide the data type of the variable that we are trying to declare, TypeScript will guess what kind of data that we have stored inside the variable, right? That is what known as type inference. We have discussed what is difference between type inference and type annotation. Type annotation means whenever we specifically mention that what kind of data type that we are trying to store is known as type annotation. And type inference means, if you see over here, we have not declared any data type, like what kind of data type that we are trying to store inside this variable, which is an array, right? But it is still able to identify that we have stored string, number, and Boolean type of data type inside this array. Okay, that is what known as type inference. So in TypeScript, it says that though we do not provide any data type, that what kind of data type we are trying to store inside an array, based on the value that we have entered, it will be able to identify that what kind of data type we have stored inside an array. So if you see currently it is displaying, which is string, number, and Boolean. And if you again add it over here, something like let's say null, then it will automatically guess like what kind of data type we have stored over here. So there it is saying we have stored a null data type. Okay. So this is the third way in which we can declare an array. This we have already seen a lot of time, that whenever you do not provide data type, it will automatically guess. So this is exactly similar to however we have declared in terms of array. But the only difference is we do not provide the data type over here, and we have provided the data type, which is any or number if you want to make it as a generic one, as a more specific data that we are trying to store inside an array. Okay. So these are the three way in which also, let's say, I'll just make it as, let's say, array 5 over here, and then we'll store something like, let's say, TS. JS. So not only for the numeric, but for all the data type that we are trying to store. And if you do not provide the data type over here, it will be able to identify based on the data that we are trying to store inside the array or a single variable. It will guess what kind of data type we have stored inside the variable. So now if you see, we have stored a complete string type. And if you hover over on this array, it is saying it is a type of string array. String and then square bracket. That means string array. Now, if you just say it as, let's say, array 6 equals to something which is TS. In this case, it will just guess that it is having a data type as a string type. Okay, so we have directly declared the value. And if you see what is the type that it is able to guess it over here. So for that, we have discussed earlier that we have a method known as, we have a property known as type of, and then you can say it as array 6. What is the type of array 6? It will just guess based on the value that we have stored inside a variable, right? So if you now try to print the value, we are in array. If we try to uh, execute this code, then it is saying that the type of variable that we have stored is string. And if you would like to see for this one, what is the type of variable that we have stored inside an array 5, let's see what it is providing us in terms of what is the type of data type that we have stored inside an array. So in this case, you'll see a type is object. Okay, so functions, strings, array, and anyways like object. So those will be considered as an object type of data type. Okay, even if you check it over here as well. So for this, if you try to check what is the type of the variable that we have declared, so these will be considered like in terms of array. All in terms of array, whenever you check like what is the type of variable that we are trying to declare, what is the type of variable that we have declared, in terms of array, it will consider as an object. Okay, so that's where it is a special type of variable where it is used to store more than one type of value. So whenever we have a requirement that we have to declare a variable which can store a multiple number of values, we can store it inside an array by using square bracket. Okay, these are like a basic way where we can declare. We also have something where we can just declare a variable, which is, let's say, an array. We can just declare an array and we'll say it as empty array. So this is completely empty right now, right? And later on also um, you can store the values. How do we store the values? You can just say it as, let's say, equals to 10. And so, okay. So for that, you also have to make it as something, what type of data type that you are trying to store. So whatever the data type that you store it over here, you can make it as, let's say, if you want to store multiple number of data type, we can store it as any. Okay, if you say it as any, then any number of any type of data type you will be able to store inside the array. Now let's say if you want to store, so what is this? This basically an index of an array. 0 means first position, and index also will mention it over here. Index in array starts from 0. Starts from 0. Index in array starts from 0. It does not start from 1. It starts from 0. So if you see over here, what did we do? We have declared a variable name, which is array, and then we have given something which is index. Whenever we have to provide index, we have to use a square bracket. Okay, this is just a syntax. This is not something that have been discovered by someone, but this is a syntax. Whenever it have been created, this programming have been created, they have mentioned this, that we have to write the index whenever we have to either store the value or we have to get the value from the array by using index. We have to use that inside a square bracket. Okay. Now again, as we have given a array which is of type any, then we can also be able to store TS. But if you make it as, let's say, number, then we have already seen like many of the time that we'll not be able to store apart from number, right? So type string is not assignable to number. Okay. Now let's say if you again now let's say try to print the value that we have stored inside an array. So whatever the value that we have stored over here, you will be able to see that it stored the similar value inside the array. whatever we have given, which is this is the first number, this is the second values that we have stored inside an array. That will print us the value in the format which is an array inside the square bracket and a value which is 10 and 20. Now let's try to understand one more thing. So whenever see what is object in JavaScript or TypeScript, we have not discussed. We'll discuss in our going forward session. So object is generally in JavaScript and TypeScript, in both of the language, everything will be same, only the statical part that we store the data type inside TypeScript. But in general, what is object in JavaScript or TypeScript? So object is also a type of variable which store a value inside the curly braces, and this and the value will be stored by using a key and value pair. So one will be key, and for key, the value will be there. Example, name equals to, let's say, TS, TypeScript. Okay. So this is how we'll declare array in TypeScript. Okay. Now what happened over here is this becomes a key. That means name is a key over here, and then value for name is TS, right? So every object will be inside the TypeScript and JavaScript. Every object will be in a form of key and value pair inside. Now we have just seen that. The type of array is also being displayed as an object, right? We have seen at the time of running that it generally display a type of array is object, right? So it internally what happened is whenever we declare over here the value, let's say example this one, this array we'll consider it over here. So this is an array that we have declared, which is having value as 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on, right? This internally will be converted as 0, 10. So this will also be converted in terms of object, which is key value pair. Okay, this usually will not be converted as an object, but will have a value which is as key and value pair. Okay, so as we have seen earlier in terms of object, which consists of key and value. And what is key represents over here? The index of the array. So index starts from 0, and this will be like the key that we see over here, which internally converts these into like this, which is 0, 10, 1, 20, 2, 30, 3, whatever the value that we have given, 4, true, and then 5, TS. So this will be stored like this. So first value will basically become a 0th index. Second value will be known as first index. Third value will be known as second index. And last value will be known as last value that we see as a number minus 1 index. That means we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 data, right? So the length of this particular array will be 6. That means we have stored a 6 number of elements inside this array. But index here will start from 0 to 5. Even if you count it from 0 to 5, which is equals to 6. Okay, we have to include 0 as well. So first value inside an array will be considered as the 0th element. That means index of first value is 0. Now, how do I know that? Let's try to get the array. Let's try to get the value by using index. So this is the array 2, and from that we are saying that just give me the 0th index value. So either we store the value or we get the value from array. We'll be using an index inside square bracket. So here we are saying that give me the value which is placed at 0th index. Index over here, whatever we have placed is known as index. Okay. So now if you try to see over here, which is 0, and let's try to again print it out the value, you will see that it is displaying us a 10 value over here, which is this one. Okay, 0th index. And we know that the index starts from 0 and the last value, whatever the value is there, will be considered as total number in terms of visual minus 1. That means we know that there are 6 elements, minus 1 will be the last index available inside the array. So there are 6 number of element, and if we try to access the fifth index value, that means we'll get the last value from an array in terms of this, right? Because we have only 6 elements. So if you see over here, which is this one. Now let's say we'll say it as 6. We know that the index starts from 0 and we have only 6 number of elements available inside this. So this 6 basically considered as a 7th element inside the array. Let's see what happened in that case. Okay, it just says that undefined because it is not able to find the 7th index value inside an array. And we know that if whatever the variable that we are trying to use, if it is not available, then it will give us a value or throw us a value as undefined in terms of JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay, I hope it is clear, like how does it get internally stored and how do we use the index. Now let's try to let's try to create one more array, which I'll just give the name as 8. We'll make it as any, and then inside this we'll store something like, let's say 70 some values, and then we'll make it as also TypeScript, let's say JavaScript, some random value. I'm just trying to provide, let's say blue, and then apply. So this is a mix of data type that we have stored it over here. Okay, as we have given any, so it can accept any type of data type. Okay, so now if you see over here, what is the number of elements that we have stored? The number of elements that we have stored are 3, 3, 6, and 2, 8. So total number of elements available inside this array is 8, right? How can we get all the elements at a time? How can we print all the elements at a time? One thing is you can directly print the array and it will display us the value in terms of array. It will display us the value in terms of array itself. That means inside this square bracket. However, we have declared, it will be declared in the same way. Okay. One more important thing, that in terms of array, array is a ordered collection. This is also known as ordered collection. Collection means a number of elements that we can store, right? What is meant by ordered? So however we have declared over here, right? We have declared true at the last. That there will not be a situation anytime when true will become first element. So true will always be displayed at the last index itself. That is what known as ordered. However, we have declared it will be available in the same format. That means starting with 78, 34, 56 and end with true. So now if you um, try to print the value, you see that it displays the value inside the array. That means inside the square bracket. However, we have declared the value, which is 78, 34, 56 until the true. Okay. Now let's say this is in array format. Okay. If we have to get the array value in terms of array format itself, we can directly print the variable that we have declared to store an array. But let's say if you have to get the single value at a time, that means a normal value at a time. Normal in the sense all the values from array. So how do we do in general is by using an index. But for this as well, let's say whenever we have to access all the elements, so let's see how it is declaring. So currently, after printing this one, which is array 8 of 0, it will just declare a number, a value that is available at 0th index. Okay, but this will not display in terms of array because we are trying to get a single value from an array. Okay, now if you have to print all the values from an array, will we be doing every time like this, which is array 8, 0th index, 1 index, 2 index, and 3 index? So let's say if you have 100 type of values, will we be able to access like this? No. So to access all the elements, we have we can see the pattern over here. The console.log array 8 is similar for all the statement that we are trying to write it over here. The only thing that are getting changed is index, right? So in this case, to access all the elements of an array, we can use a looping concept. Okay, we can in generally use a looping concept. How do we use loop? By using a for loop. We know that we have a for off loop as well, where we can just say it as it's a data of array 8. We have discussed this earlier in terms of loop. And whenever we have to print the value, we can directly print the value, which is console.log data. So what happened in this way is this data will have an idea of all the values that this array is having. One by one, as soon as it start executing the loop, for the first time, this data will get the value as 78. Second time, this data will get the value as 34. As soon as the values are available inside an array, it will keep on iterating. And after that, like after printing the true value over here in this case, the loop will be automatically terminated. So internally, this also takes a condition of less than length value. That means whatever the number of elements that we have stored inside this array, it will try to check with the condition whether all the elements have appeared over here in terms of loop or not. Now, if you try to print the value, you will get all the values one by one, starting from 78 till the end of true value. Okay, this is one way in which we can generate the, in which we can get all the data from an array. Second way is we have one property available inside an array. This is a property. This is not a method. This is a property known as length. Okay, property of an array. Length. This is a property. Length, whenever we use length, it will just display the number of elements available inside an array. Number of elements available inside an array. How do we use this? The syntax to use this is array.length. Okay, simple. Array.length. What is the array that we have declared? Array is 8. Let's try to print it out. I'll just say it as array 8 dot length. So it will just give us what is the number, like the number of element that we have stored inside array. So if you try to print the value over here, it will give us 8 or 9, whatever the value is. So it is 8. As we have stored 3, 6 to 8 value inside this array 8. Okay, so this is one way in which we can get all the value from an array. The other way is we have, we can also use a traditional for loop. How do we use it? How do we use a traditional for loop? We have to initialize a value, let I equals to 0. Why did we provide 0? Why not 5 or why not 1? Because we know that index starts from 0, or index starts with 0 in array. So we have to always, whenever we have to iterate through an array, and if you have to get all the elements from an array, the initialization that we have to do is we have to start it from 0. Okay, and then this will take a condition. What is the what should be the condition over here? We have to print all the value. So how will I know that how many elements are available inside the array? Let's say today we have only 8. Tomorrow we have 800 data available inside an array. And how will you know that? Will you be able to count all those things? No, right? We'll just be using a length property on the array. So we'll say it as I less than array dot length. Okay, and then I plus plus. I plus plus is incrementing the I every time. And to just get the value, we know that how do we get the value from an array? By using index, array, and then of index, right? So we have to just provide it console.log array 8 that we have used. Notice which one? Array 8 we are using. So array 8 of index. So what is index represent over here? The I value that we declared here will represent as an index of an array. You can just place it as I over here. What will happen? For the first time, I will be 0. So it will get us the value, which is array 8 of 0. Next time, I will become 1 because we have given the increment part over here. So this I will become 1, and then the first value will be receiving by array 8 of 1. For the next time again, it will print us 2 and so on. Now again, if you see, if you execute the code, we'll see that all the values, this is the length, total number of elements that it is printing over here. And all the other values that we see available inside an array, we are also able to get it by using traditional for loop. Okay, the simplest way to use to get the array, to get the value from an array is by using for of loop. This is known as for of loop. And this is a traditional loop that we have declared, traditional loop. Okay. So this is all about array that we have in terms of TypeScript. Now we have not finished yet the array. There are a number of methods that we have to discuss. There are n number of methods that we have available inside an array that will also discuss in this session itself. Okay, so let's now start with methods of array. Any question before that?
Hi, Praveen. I have one
Yes.
question.
Yes.
So when we were like executed the type of method, right? So it showed object, right?
Object.
Object.
That.
So that is the thing. Like when you have an array of values, a string type, and it should show a display object. I mean, a string, right? But
So
it was
that.
showing object. Yeah. So
Okay.
that is my confusion.
Okay. Okay. So what happened in general is whenever we store a single value, at that point of time, it will display us a data type, whatever the data type that we are returning, that we have stored inside a variable. Okay.
Okay.
For array, it displays object. It's just because um, inside the JavaScript or TypeScript, the data type of the array is considered as an object. Array in JavaScript or TypeScript are technically, if you consider this as an object, because
Okay.
we are trying to store a multiple elements, and that all the elements that we have discussed over here will be converted in terms of map, which is in terms of Java, we say it as a map, which is key and value pair, right? And
Okay.
second thing, this is also a non-primitive data type. We have discussed at the time of data type that there are two types of data type. One is primitive and second is non-primitive. So all the non-primitive data type will fall under an object type.
Okay.
Okay. And whenever we declare a value for a variable in terms of the primitive data type will accept only one value. Only one value. So at that point of time, it will display the primitive data type for the value that we are trying to store. For non-primitive data type, it will display the type of values, whatever the values, either we declare as an array, object, or whatever the things that you declare as a non-primitive data type, it will consider as an object itself, because that does not fall under the primitive data type of TypeScript or JavaScript.
Okay.
Okay. In terms of this, if you talk about let num equals to 10, here we have declared a data type as number. Also, it is storing only single value. So this point of time, it will just identify what is the type of the value, type of the variable that we have declared over here. And that will be considered as an object. No, sorry, that will be considered as a number as a data type. Whereas in terms of array, we'll say it as many numbers over here. Let's say example, many numbers over here. So at that point of time, it will not say every time like, okay, we have stored a number. It will just say it as we have an object, which is a collection, which is a type of number that we have stored inside the array. But in general, it will return us the type of array whenever we declare if an object. Okay.
Okay. Praveen. Like if we give type annotation also. For instance, the variable is a number and I give a values as number. Even at the in that case also it shows object, right?
Every time it will
Every time.
just display an object. For array, for non-primitive data type, it will display a type of
Okay.
variable as an object
Object. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
because it is
Okay.
storing a multiple data over
Okay.
here.
Okay. Yeah. Understood. Yeah. Thank you.
So one thing we have to just keep in mind that primitive data type will provide us a type of as the data type that we have declared. Non-primitive data type, that means it can be object, arrays, functions, and other things. Okay, an object, arrays, functions, strings. All these, all these will be considered as an object in JavaScript and TypeScript both. And that is why whenever we use a type of, it will throw us a value which is object. Okay. Any other question? Okay. So let's get let's start with a few of the method that we'll be discussing in terms of array. So few of the methods means like we have declared an array over here. Let's declare an array. I'll just say it as const, let's say array 9 equals to some values, which is 5, 4, 3, 2, 3, 2, 1. Okay. We can declare any number of value. We can also declare some value, which is, let's say, fruits. I'll just say it as some color and so on. Random value, we have stored it over here. Now, this is okay. We have stored a value. But whenever we have to again add the value inside an array, how will we add that? One way we have seen that when we can declare an array over here, which is empty, and then we can add the value by using index. But this is not always possible because here we already have some kind of value, some number of element. Then how will we identify that what is the next index that we have to use? Here, if we try to store a value, something which is array 9, array 9 of, let's say, 7. But how will you understand whether 7 is already available or not? Right? So let's say we have 5 and 2, total 7 elements. So I'll just give it as array 9, 6 equals to, let's say, some value which is pink. Okay. And now we'll try to also print the value which is array 9. Earlier, here also we'll try to print the value which is console.log array 9. Okay, let's see what happens over here in terms of this. When we say it as like array of index equals to the value, some value, and what happens in terms of array if it is already available inside the array, if that index is already available inside the array, what will happen? See, over here it has printed the value which is fruits and color inside the array. And when we used a 6, that means whatever the value is available inside an array, it has been overridden by the value that we have declared over here. So if you see now this becomes pink over here, right? So in this case, we'll not be able to understand, though we have only 6 sevens, but let's say if you have 100 or 200, how will you identify what index value we have to use it over here, right? So in that case, how will we add, store, or get the value or delete the value from an array? We'll see it over here by using different types of methods that we have in array. Okay, let's start with first method, which is known as a push method. So there are different methods available. One we have discussed, which is a property. This is not a method. This is a property of an array. Whenever we use array.length, it will give us the number of element available inside an array. Now we are trying to discuss a different types of methods that we have in TypeScript. The first one is known as a push method. So if you people have if any one of you have gone through with stack in Java, stack is basically a data structure. If you have gone through, or if you know like what it stacks in terms of storing the value, removing the value, and updating any kind of value inside and stack. Let's say example, storing and removing the value, we use push and pop method inside stack. There are similar sort of method available inside an array in TypeScript. So first one is known as push method. Okay. So what this push method does is just try to concentrate. There are a slight difference that we'll be discussing in our today's session itself, but we'll discuss a few different methods. How can we with different approach. So the first method is known as a push method. What it does is it adds one or more element, one or more than one element as well. It adds one or more element at the end of an array. Okay. So whenever we have to store the data available inside an array, whenever we have to add any of the data, either a single data or multiple data, um, in array in the array that we have declared over here, we can use the push method. Okay. So push method is basically used to add uh, whatever the value that we are trying to add, we'll add the data at the end of an array. If you see the syntax is very simple in terms of array. We have to first store the array name that we are trying to use. Array name, I'll just make it as array name. Array name dot push as a method. And whatever the number of element, if you want to store a single element, then you can just provide the element one, whatever the value that you want to store. If you want to store multiple elements, then at that point of time, we have to use with a comma separated value. Okay, let's say an example over here. So we have an array which we have given the name as array name, and then we can use a push method. Let's say if we just want to use a single value, see, as soon as we started push method, it is saying that we can either accept a value which is string or number because we have declared the value which is of type string or number itself. Okay. This is type inference. Based on the type inference, it is able to identify that what kind of data type values we have stored inside. Now, if you say it over here, which is, let's say true, it will say like argument of type Boolean is not assignable to this because it considered the data type as only numeric or string. But now if you make it as any, it will be able to accept. So let's try to see. I'll just store a value which is 50 over here. What will happen in this case? Here also, let me do a breakdown over here. I'll just say it as methods in array. And inside this first, I'll also print the value, the complete value, complete array over here, which is array 9. And after this also, we will print the value, which is array 9. Now let's try to execute the value, execute the code, and then see what is happening over here. So first thing that it will generate in terms of this is the original array that we have declared. Now we have used the method known as push, and push method says that whatever the value that we are providing inside the push as an argument, as argument over here, this will be added at the end of the array. So here we can see that it has added the value at the end of an array, which is 50. Now let's say if you are trying to store multiple values, let's say I'll just give it as apple, and I'll also give it as blue as a color. So here we'll say that all the three values that we have stored over here will be added at the end of the array. So now if you try to execute the code, you'll see that the similar array it has declared over here, which is ending with fruits and color. And after that, these three values, which is 50, apple, and blue, have also been added to the array at the end. Okay. So whenever we have to add the value at the end of an array, we have to use a push method. Most of the time, we'll be using a push method itself if we have to store any value inside an array in terms of test automation. Again, that will be depending on the scenario if we have to add those. Let's say you want to get the number of elements, or if you want to display all the products name available on the page. So what we have to do is generally sometimes we'll have to click on pagination as well, get the product name, declare basically an array, get the product name from all the products and push it inside the array by using push method, or add it inside an array by using push method. Again, click on pagination, which is like the next button, and then get all the values and again add it inside the array. So we'll be using a push method at that point of time. But there are different methods that we have to understand as a part of interview purpose. Okay. So this is the first method which is used for adding the element to the end of an array. Now the next method is known as pop. So this push method also accepts a parameter. It has to accept a parameter because we are trying to add the value inside an array. This is a pop method which will not accept any parameter. What it will do is it will remove the last element from an array. It removes the last element from the array, from an array. Okay. So whatever the last element appears inside the array, it will remove that particular value. So we have color over here as a last element. And we also have added some of the values. So let's see the first syntax. What is the syntax for this? So it is array name dot pop. It do not accept any parameter or argument because it simply do the removing of the element from an array. Right? It removes the last element from an array. Now, if you try to execute the code, you will see that the last element that appears from an array have been removed, and it also displays what kind of value that we have removed from the array. So it is saying I have removed blue from an array because we have added blue over here by using a push method. And the original array was this one. And after using a push method, the original array became this one, which is this thing, having a 50 apple and blue. So blue is at the end. Whenever we use array.name, it removes the last element from an array, and it also returns that particular value. Or it also returns the value that it has removed. Okay. I have already prepared a document as well for the complete method that I have. I'll share it with you people um, very soon. So if you go over here, make it as part of JavaScript. You will see that there are arrays. So I'll share it with you people as well. I have already created a document. I'll share it with you people in this weekend. Regarding the TypeScript document that we are currently discussing in our session, um, all the documents we have, I have already placed it inside the drive, and have also given you people access to. Okay, so this, I believe like you people are able to see my screen, which is Visual Studio Code.
Yes, Praveen.
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, great. So this pop method is just used to remove the last element from an array. And now if we try to print the array, the resultant array, we can see that it will remove the blue from the array from the other array. So if you see, like, it is ending with apple, whereas just before this it was ending with a blue over here. So the last element have been removed by pop. Okay. Now this is okay that if we have to add the element inside an array at the last, we can use push method, and if we have to remove from the last, we can use pop method. But what about if we have to store at the initial stage? That means at the beginning. How can we do that? Though we'll not be using these kind of method in terms of test automation, but it is very helpful in terms of interview purpose. So we have one method known as unshift. This will also take parameters, parameter or meters. That means single or multiple values. Okay. What it does is it is just opposite to the add push method. What it do is push method adds an array to the end of an array, adds an element to the end of an array, whereas unshift method adds the element at the beginning of an array, just at the beginning of an array. Okay, so if we have to add a value to the beginning or to the starting of an array, we can use an unshift method. Unshift method accept a parameter. It can be a single parameter or multiple parameter. So the syntax is array name dot unshift, and it can take whatever the number of element that we want to store at beginning of an array. Okay, so these are important for interview purpose. So they'll ask you what is difference between push and unshift method. Okay, they'll ask you what is difference between push and unshift method in array. Both of the method are same in JavaScript and TypeScript. Okay. Now if you see over here, let's say I'll just add it as array 9 dot unshift and have and we are trying to say like 100 and red. Let's say if you just want to if you just want to add one single value, then you can just place it as one single value. If you want to store a multiple value, then we can place it by a comma separated value. So if you want to add unshift as if you want to add multiple elements or one particular element at the beginning of an array, we can use array dot unshift method. Unshift method is used to add the element to the beginning of an array. And let's try to print the value. Earlier, if we remember that we have the array which is starting with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is the original array that we have declared. So it is starting with 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. But now after this, we'll see that it will start with 100 and array over here, 100 and red. So it is getting started with 100 and red over here. Okay. So if you have to store the data, which in terms of test automation might not be the condition, but just we have to understand it in terms of the interview purpose as well. Like how do we add the value to the beginning of an array? In the same way, we have another method known as for, which is shift, exactly opposite to the pop method that we have discussed over here. So it removes in terms of pop method, it removes the element from the end of an array. In terms of shift method, it removes an element. It removes the first element from an array. Okay. So if you see the syntax is again similar, array name dot shift, it do not require any kind of parameter or arguments because it just does a remove kind of things. And now let's say whenever we use shift method on the array that we have declared, which is array 9, so this 100 will be removed from the array. So now because that is the first element which is available inside an array, and we have also printed the value, which is the complete array. Earlier it was starting with 100 and now it is starting with red because the first value from the array have been removed. Okay, that is known as a shift method. So then again, there is a question that what is difference between pop and shift? So pop removes the element from the end of an array, removes the last element from the array, and shift removes the first element from an array. Okay. Now there are a couple of more methods. Let's discuss in our today's session, and probably we'll have to continue array to the next session, which is tomorrow as well. We are joining tomorrow as well. Okay, so we have another method known as slice. Okay, so slice is what is meant by slice is basically a portion of an array. So whenever we have to get not all the method, but few of the not all the elements from an array, but few of the elements from an array, we can use a slice method. Okay, so slice will take a parameter which is start index That means from where we want to get the value from the array. So and it also takes an end index. So let's say what happened is, this is our complete array that we have. The latest array is this one, which is starting with red. And if you want to get the value from red to, let's say, fruits, how do we get that? If we just print the complete array over here, which is like array name, then it will declare all the values. But if we want to get only few elements from an array, how do we get that? So to get the few elements from an array or portion of an array, we can use a slice method. Let's see a syntax. How does it work in general? So it is simple, which is array name dot slice, and we have to provide start index and end index. So end index will be uh, exclusive over here. So if we talk about the start index that we have, which is start index, we know that this will just be an starting index of an array or of the portion of an array. Okay, and end index will be ending index of the portion of an array, but this will be exclusive. Exclusive. What is meant by exclusive? That whatever the last index or end index we provide, that value will not be returned. So that index value will not be returned. Example, let's say we have red as 0th index. We know that this is a 0th index. Index in array. Index starts with 0 in array, right? So whenever we try to use slice, let's say we have the latest one, which is array9 dot slice. So this we have to use a start index and end index over here. So how do we use start index and end index? We can directly place it, let's say 0 to 3. Example. So what happened in that condition is, what happened in the console log, and then place it inside array so that it will also print the value. So what happened over here is, what did we use? 0, which is starting index. So we are saying that start from the 0th index and go till end index -1. As I said, end index will be exclusive. So what is end index over here? We have given an end index as 3. So the value will be printed till 3 minus 1 index, which is till second index over here. Now, if you see, the 0th index is red, first index is 5, and second index is 4. So if we execute this code or execute this line of code, we will see that the value that it is trying to print us is red 5 and 4. Red 5 and 4, because we have given the starting index, which is 0. That means from what index we are trying to get the value. And end index will be exclusive. That will not be inclusive. So this will be the previous index, it will print us the value. It is not mandatory that we have to provide the start index at 0 only. We can also provide, let's say, 5, and we can leave it as it is, which is 5 comma. So as we have not given the any value as an end index, so end index basically is an optional over here as well. I'm so sorry. So end index, whatever if you do not provide end index, then it will keep on iterating till the last element of an array. That means length of an array. So if you see now, it is displaying us the value from index 5. If you see, this is 0, this is 1, this is 4 is 2, 3 is 3, 2 is 4th index, and 1 is 5th index. So it starts from 1 and till the element we have available inside an array, it basically printed all the values. So if the end index is optional over here. If you do not provide end index, then all the elements starting from the start index will be printed inside the value. Okay. So this is basically the use of slice whenever we have to get some portion of an array some element from an array, we can use a slice index. I'll I'll talk about um, one more method, and then we'll wrap up our session for today. The next method that we have is known as splice. Okay. Fifth method, this one is the fifth one that we have discussed is known as a slice method. Okay. Just okay. So the fifth method that we have used over here is a slice. I've also prepared a document uh, for for us in terms of understanding the complete array. So if you see this document that I have prepared is process, and then we have array in JavaScript. So if you see, I have given everything. This is like for both JavaScript and TypeScript. So all the method that we are trying to discuss, which is push, then we have pop, we have unshift, we also have like shift, pop, uh, and other method that we are trying to discuss, splice, slice, and so on. Every method we have declared inside this book, this array as a tutorial that we have prepared over here. So all the details will also be available in this document. Okay. So if you see the splice over here, now it is saying splice is used to insert and remove element in between the array. Okay. So splice, what is the use of splice? The splice method basically used with, uh, let me go to them. So what is splice method? The splice method is used to insert and remove element in between the array. That means it can remove the element from starting. It can remove and add element from starting. It can remove and add element from the ending, and it can remove and add element from the middle of an array as well. But what is um, what is this splice method is doing? So this splice method, if you see over here, it says that it is used to insert and remove. So if we want to insert and remove at the same time, if you see over here, removing an element and adding new element at the same time, we can use splice method. Earlier, whatever the method that we have seen, either it is removing the element or it is adding the element. But now by using splice method, we will be able to add and remove element at the same time. At the same time, we can add or remove the element. If you see the syntax is array name dot splice. Array name dot splice. It takes a starting index. That means from where it has to start adding or deleting. Okay. So it takes first as an start index. Okay. So start index at which to start changing the array. That means either adding or deleting. Delete count, which is optional as well, but it says that how many elements you want to delete at the starting index. If you want to delete the element from an array, we have to provide the delete count. That means how many number of element that you want to delete from an array. And then this item that you see, which is item 1, 2, 3, and so on. This is for if you want to also add the value at the same time inside an array. Let's try to see an example and then you will understand. So the current value that we have array 9 is this one, which is this value. The current array that we have is red 5 4 3 2 1 fruits color 50 and apple. Okay, let me also try to print the current array that we have, which is array 9. And now we'll use array like splice method over here. Let's try to concentrate for a couple of more minutes. and then you'll see what is happening over here. So here, what did we say is, we have said that we have used a splice method and said that this is the first parameter that we see is, or argument that we see is start index. Okay, this is starting index. So 0, 1, and 2. The four that we see inside an array is an starting index. That means it will start either deleting or removing from number 4 that we have inside an array. Okay, then we are saying that delete count is 0. That means if you do not want to delete any value, then you can provide it at 0. Let's see first with the 0 itself. So the delete count that we see over here, we are saying 0. That means do not remove any element and then add apple and banana inside the array. Now let's see what happened. We are trying to print the array till now that we have framed. Or let's say do one thing. We'll declare an array so that we'll not have any confusion. Array 10 equals to, let's say, 34, 45, 23, some other type, which is JS. Also say it as, let's say, apple and orange. Okay. So I'll now add some other value, which is red over some kind of random value added over. I'll print this value as well. And then we are trying to say that also print the value, which is array 10. So we have to use array 10 as a array name. Okay. So what we are trying to do, we are trying to use a splice method saying that start from the second index. What is that second index? 0, 1, and 2. So 23 is at second index. So starting from this value, delete a number of element, which is 0. So it will not delete anything. And then pink and red will be added over here. That means these value that we are trying to say as a part of item 1, item 2, and so on is for adding the element to the array. And where it will add, let's try to see over here. So where it will in general add is, let's make it as this, and okay. Now if you see, our main array is this one, which is 34. Our main array is 34, 45, 23, TS, JS, Apple, and Orange. And now if you see over here, at second index, it is saying we have used a splice method, which is saying at second index, start from the second index, delete 0 element, and add pink and red to the array. So it has done the similar thing. So it's just 34, 45, and at the second index, it has added pink and red. And then the second index value have been moved after red over here. Apart from that, everything is similar. If you see, it is saying that start from the second index. So at the second index, add these value. And after that, all the value will remain same over here. Now let's also try to see. Now it was like delete count when we have given a delete count as 0. Now we'll say it as, let's say delete count as 3. Example. So what it will do is, starting from second index, it will remove 3 elements from the array. Second index, third index, and fourth index. Starting from second element, remove the 3 element. That means starting from second element, remove the next 3 element, which is 23, TS, and JS will be removed from an array. And at the same time, this pink and red will also be added at the index where it has, inside the array where it has removed the element. Now, if you try to execute the code, we'll see that earlier the value was 34, 45, 23, TS, JS, Apple, and Orange. Now the value became 34, 45, and then 3 values, which is 23, TS, and JS, have been removed from the array and added with pink and red over here. And now apple and orange are same inside the array. Okay. Any confusion in terms of splice method?
No problem.
These are the method probably we'll never use in terms of test automation, but we have to understand as a part of interview. So they'll ask you definitely a question that what is difference between slice and splice method? Because the name looks exactly similar, having a P in splice. If you remove this, this becomes a slice. So they'll definitely try to confuse you what is difference between slice and splice. So in terms of slice, you have to say that whenever we have to get a few elements from an array, by using start index and end index, we can use a slice method. And if you want to add and remove at the same time inside an array, we can use splice method over here. Okay. So with this, I'll stop it over here. And few of the methods that are still pending in terms of array, we'll discuss in our next session.